Since there's been theater, there's been technology to support that theater.
Cinema and television, and to some extent theater, have made us believe that so many things are possible.
Theater is simulated reality. It allows us to build imagined worlds in a way that's effectively simulating the universes that we want to create.
I'm a research scientist. I'm a research scientist in the AI, and I was working on various ways to try to get some intuition or common sense out of large amounts of data. And as I was working on that, I realized, wait a second, there is a similarity between this work and improv.
Science is about hypotheses and outcomes and experimentation and surprise, and comedy is about those same things as well. So every time you're telling a joke or every time you're doing an improv performance, it is a hypothesis. You're presenting a hypothesis and the results are what the audience give back. I did a show called 15 Minutes of Fame, where I got the person who had the least amount of stage experience, the most amount of stage fright in the audience, up on stage and did a show with them. And when that was a success, I was like, okay, if that's possible, what else is possible? Can I do a show with a rock or a sock puppet or a robot?
I decided to bring tech and improv together because of a job I had where I was working on search query auto-completion. When you type something in a browser and it completes the text for you. What this system does, which is relying on artificial intelligence and statistics, it is trying to find the most likely piece of text that you're about to write. And I realized, wait a second, I've been doing improv for so many years and trying to be obvious, trying to say the most obvious thing given a context. Here, I'm also building something that tries to be obvious and to predict what I'm going to say.
In improv, there's this conventional thought paradigm which says go for the most simple, easy idea. And so the easiest thing is to combine your two passions. So combining AI, combining improv, that was a logical thing for me. I also think that there's some very obvious connections between the two. You're trying things and then realizing what works, what doesn't work, and then you modify what happens in the show. The idea that like I could make this system look great on stage through my skill, talent, and abilities, that's spectacular. So not just me, but then I can give this tool to other improvisers and they can start to use it and develop their skills and develop their shows with this tech. Well, it makes them better improvisers. It makes them able to work with people and systems of different abilities.
I met Kory online, and a common friend of ours, John, told me, hey Piotr, by the way, there is another guy who had the same idea as you. Oh really? And he's in Canada. Well, the first thing I did was to actually look him up, find his website, his blog post where he detailed his own experimentation in the field, and I shot him an email.
Piotr sent me this hugely long email, like 30,000 words, and said, hey, here's who I am, I'm doing this, you should know that I'm doing this also, and we should collaborate.
He replied immediately, and then I always like to say that he jumped on the first plane he could to get to London.
And I met with Piotr and had a connection immediately.
And we chatted about it for a whole afternoon, and we became friends. So I really made a friend over the internet. It can happen. So initially, with Kory, when we were brainstorming about it, we thought that the great thing would be to make the AI and the robot look good on the stage. So the AI chatbot is the one that supplies the answers and that talks, and the robot is the physical embodiment.
The innovation of the show is not that I'm using technology in the theater and other people aren't. It's that it always has been used in theater, and this is the technology that I can bring to the equation. Since there's been theater, there's been technology to support that theater.
It's not only about making the robot look good, it's also about the robot and the tech make us look good on the stage. Part of the motivation of our show is to actually show that what are the limitations of all that AI. For instance, the fact that a chatbot can be pretty good at generating sentences. It doesn't mean that it really makes sense. It doesn't mean that it can keep a long context in memory. It doesn't mean it can recall early things in the conversation. It doesn't mean that it won't mix completely genders and personas, and it will not start saying something like the father of my mother, who is the sister of my brother, and then you start wondering what's going on here. And then you think, well, I can actually use that in my show, that vulnerability and that failure.
I am the team member of Improbotics.
Alex is fundamentally just a piece of software. So it doesn't have a mind. It doesn't really learn, it just memorizes, and it can slightly extrapolate from what it has seen. And so we thought, okay, that robot had to have a high status. And we had to make that robot look good on the stage. So we chose a robot that looks cute.
In an improv performance, we have robots that are part of the show. I am not thinking about these robots as human performers. I'm understanding their skills and abilities and what they can bring to the show, and then trying to showcase that as best as possible. Knowing in my head that they're not human, and they're not gonna bring the same things that a human can bring. I know what they can do. I know what they do more often than what they don't do. And so I'm doing my best to showcase what they do as opposed to portraying them and embodying them as pseudo-human. They're very much systems.
A machine alone won't give us that confidence. What we need is another human being. Bringing tech in theater is not something that makes it impersonal, for the very simple reason is that we are not in a logic of replacement. We are in a logic of providing a new creative tool.
I think that the embodiment of the robots is very important. I don't think that it's inherently impersonal to have robots in the space in addition to humans. I think that it's going to lead us towards more interesting stories and ideas that can be explored because we have robots in this world.
Are you sure this is going to grow back?
We're doing a special massage technique. So.
I am not warmed.
No, just can we not rub it in, please?
Kory and I had actually a first show we called Long Distance Relationship, and it was all about two people connecting via Skype or Hangouts, and after not having talked for a couple of days, and then rediscovering themselves again on the screen, and would literally call each other during a show, and Kory would appear on the screen, and there was something magical about it, about the fact that it did work.
The culmination of it was 2 shows happening concurrently, one in London, one in Portland, Oregon, for 2 different audiences, but they were connected through live streams so that the audiences on both sides could see the other theaters, hear the other theaters with microphones, speaker projection. A whole bunch of tech engineering had to go into that setup to make a theater umbilical cord work out.
The best thing about doing those shows, even if we love tech and we love hacking and coding, is the human connection.
You get to connect audiences that wouldn't otherwise connect. So there are certain people that like to see science about AI. There are certain people that like to see improvised comedy. And this show really caters to both of those audiences, and the collisions that happen between those audience members is really beautiful.
As we kept iterating and thinking about what the show is about, we realized, well, maybe we just have a whole cast of expert improvisers who basically know how to make each other look good on the stage, and then take that tech as an opportunity to be thrown off balance and then recover.
Autumn has begun. Like tender meat.
It's barbecue time.
I think the audience likes it, and the cool thing is that it makes them raise questions. And I really like improv shows or theater shows in general that make you walk out of a theater and asking questions.
The best improvisers make everyone else look great. And I think that's true about any different field, that the best ones make other people look good.
So the idea of encouraging people to just experiment with new formats and creative use of technology is something that we find very rewarding. This project would have been completely different if I hadn't met Kory, if I hadn't chatted about it with so many other improvisers, if I didn't actually include improvisers in the loop, in the creative process, and if I also didn't meet all those creative AI artists, so artists who use AI as a creative tool.
Right now we deal with dialogue, and mostly dialogue, and most of the work that we've done is focuses on what the actual AI is saying, but I think that theater automation as a whole is going to start using an input from robots. So there will be lighting inputs, there will be sound inputs, music or ambient. There will be projections that are generated by the AIs. The immersive space of the theater will start to use more inputs from these computational systems.
The best thing about this whole project is talking about it and meeting other people and sharing ideas and brainstorming and ideating, that's a weird word, yeah, just making stuff up.